Are you tired of the rainbows and butterflies approach in multifamily investing, where everything unfolds seamlessly and everybody wins? You never see behind-the-scenes reality. If you resonate with our perspective, acknowledging that true insights emerge from navigating mistakes and challenges, then you're in the right place. Join Christy Keaton, your host, as she dives into the missteps and lessons learned encountered by active apartment operators. In these episodes, we embark on a journey to dissect and analyze the pitfalls within the multifamily project lifecycle, focusing on the crucial stages of finding, funding, fixing, or flipping a project. Instead of glossing over setbacks, we shine a spotlight on them, providing a valuable learning experience for our audience. Each episode concludes not only by revealing how the issue at hand was rectified, but also by sharing other priceless lessons derived from the experience. It's an unfiltered exploration of the multifamily investment landscape, revealing the intricate tapestry of challenges and solutions that make the journey worthwhile.
Welcome back to another episode of Multifamily Missteps. I'm your host, Christy Keaton, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with what I consider one of the top ladies in this space, Miss Emma Powell. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's probably my favorite thing to do in the space.
I love it.
Podcast interviews. It has nothing to do with actual real estate or investing, but the podcast stuff is so fun for me.
Well, I love it because I know I've been watching your journey for quite some time, and I know that there are some things that, sometimes we don't shine light on. We keep those to ourselves. And this podcast goes, let's shine a little light on some of the things that we've been through and help others maybe not have to go through that. So I am super excited about today. Well, so Emma, tell us just a little bit about yourself. Like, how long ago did you get in the space, and what actually made you want to get into the multifamily space?
Yeah, it's a journey because it's not exactly a career that when they tell you in ninth grade to write an essay about what you want to do when you grow up, that you go to the library, you get your personality test, and they're like, you should be a real estate investor, a real estate developer, multifamily investor, syndicator. Like those didn't even exist when we were kids,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
But I have known from a very, very young age that I wanted to be an investor. And I'm a little bit, and maybe this is one of the missteps, a little bit embarrassed about how long it took me to reconnect with that deep desire when you're a kid, because we teach ourselves to turn our dreams off. Because when we're little kids, whether we were raised with wealth or we were raised in poverty or anywhere in between, we have this dream of being financially successful and being able to go where we want, when we want, with who we want, and not have to worry about money. And even if we're not like, oh, I want a private jet and I want everybody to admire me, we just want money for the lifestyle that it affords us. And
Yeah.
then somewhere along the way, we turn it off. And I remember having conversations in high school with friends of mine, and we would literally be sitting there at lunch and somebody would say something, well, you just need to have $1 million in the stock market and then you can live off of the income. And
Yeah.
I don't know how a bunch of high school kids knew this. Maybe some of us had wealthy parents who were doing that, or we heard a grandpa, or in my case, it was my grandpa that was doing it. And I just remember feeling, yeah, this is the way. But then you get distracted with the short term of keeping the lights on, paying the rent, paying the mortgage, making the car payment. Then the kids need piano lessons, and then you need to take them on vacation because they're growing up fast. And we get so caught up in the short term that we just turn our dreams off. We're like, oh, maybe that's not for me. It was just a
Yeah.
dream. And reconnecting with that dream in my 40s and realizing, no, we really can build wealth and become truly wealthy
Yeah.
was a big step for me. In one sense, I'm embarrassed how long it took me, but on the other sense, I'm just really glad that I came back to that, wanting to be an investor, get enough invested that we could just live off of the passive income, because that's the dream. But
Yeah.
because it's a dream, it becomes a scam. And that's a lot of missteps for people where they fall into coaching programs that aren't a good fit all the way up to straight up scams. And so it's really a difficult thing to walk. And I feel like the more we're upfront and open about the mistakes or the pitfalls, the more likely people are to actually take it on. We think it's going to scare them away, but you have a
Yeah.
whole show about the mistakes because it makes people feel empowered, or at least that's what it's supposed to do. So that's where it came from. And then how I actually got started was I just started looking for real estate deals. I just needed a new career. And I started going to business meetups, BNIs, and local meetups and things like that. And I came across a few real estate meetups, and I was thinking, like, why don't I just finally get some investments? I used to be a real estate photographer, and
Awesome.
I learned how to do graphic design by doing floor plans on the computer. My mom took a floor plan drafting class when I was a kid, and I used to go and play with all her tools at her little drafting table. She designed the house that I grew up in. And so I feel like it was like coming around full circle. I've been at these real estate meetups, and I was like, I've always thought I was going to do the stock market. I tried and tried and tried and failed so many times. came to the point where you can't beat the market, you can't beat the
Yeah.
index. And so
Yeah.
I stopped trying and I just started Dave Ramsey style, just shovel as much money into it as I could. And I realized, but I can affect the destiny of my own business.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
I didn't want to do photography anymore. I felt like I was getting too old. My hands started hurting and it's a very physically demanding job and it's crappy hours, nights and weekends.
You think?
And yeah, and so I thought, okay, I'm just gonna go get some rental houses. And I don't know if I realized it at the time, but there was a terrible amount of relief from not having to have a business that relied on me, my personality, my charisma, my ability to perform well on social media, that I just could put a house on the market and then somebody would rent it. And whether or not they liked me or didn't or saw me or even knew I was involved with it, they would just pay me money. And that was such a relief, especially as a woman, because we do have to put ourselves out there to have a
Yeah.
successful business and build a personal brand. There's something about rental properties where they just pay you and nobody cares if you are articulate on a podcast or wore makeup that day. It was a great business fit for me. So that's basically how I got into it. And I knew right away I wanted to be in commercial from the photography.
Okay.
You make
Okay.
more money,
That was my
B2B,
next
right?
question. That was my next question, right? Because you said rental houses, and then I'm like, wait, but we're in the multifamily space. So
Yeah.
so did you transition completely over there, or I see that you started in single family, but do you still have single family rentals out there?
Yeah. I started in single family because I couldn't get a loan on the commercial properties that we were building.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
Okay.
have any experience and I didn't feel comfortable forming partnerships so young into my new career because I didn't know anybody. And what do they say? Partnership is like a marriage without benefits. You better make sure that you are compatible with that person and
At
that
least
it
three
is
to
for the
five
long
years.
term.
Did you
Exactly. And
at least 3 to 5 years?
yeah, and at the time I was looking at 10, 12 unit buildings and you could still get 7 to 10 year loans from your local community bank. And so
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be a commitment with this person. And they were like, "Oh, you need somebody who has experience or you have enough for the down payment, but you don't have enough for reserves." So then I needed somebody I was compatible with that
Yeah.
also could bring in 150 grand. And I had a couple of people because when we moved to Utah, we didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
But I discovered that a few people that we knew in Texas were also happened to be living in Utah. And I walked into a real estate meeting and one guy stood up to introduce himself and I was like, "Oh, I know
I
him,
know
right?"
that guy. I know that.
Yeah. So I had a couple people like that that I had met along the way over the first couple months of living here and then I reconnected with friends from Texas. And so we did try to put some partnerships together, but then they ended up going a different direction, or this one, the bank didn't like their experience either, or whatever. And so I started giving up on the commercial stuff. And I said, I'm just going to go flip some houses so I can get more money. Because I knew that if I had the down payment and the reserves, that they would give me a loan
There
even
you
without
go.
experience. And so I
Yep.
thought, okay, well, maybe I should buy like one or two rental houses and then go flip a few houses so that I can have a bunch of money so they'll give me a loan. And what I ended up doing is I never flipped a house. I kept them all as rentals because they all ended up
Wow.
making good rentals. And so I
Yeah.
had this little rental portfolio that was, but then I ran out of money. And my husband at that point, he says, Aren't you supposed to be raising capital from other people? Isn't that what you're hearing at your RIAs and other people who are doing this?" He said, "If you," and he was glad. I was like, "I'm going to run out of money. I'm not going to be able to keep doing this." And he said, "Well, good, because then you're going to have to be forced to go learn how to raise money or you're out of business.
Yep.
And you just
Yep.
sit here on your rentals and go get a job to save up for another down payment," which is what a lot of investors do. And that is definitely a path to wealth. 10 paid off houses is a retirement, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
in our case, I didn't want to just be retired. I wanted to be really, really, I want to be like Scrooge McDuck, swimming in the money bin.
I
I
know what you're
did
talking
not
about.
want to
Yeah.
worry about or think about money. Because
Yeah.
I just wanted to live a normal lifestyle
Yep.
and not have to think about money.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to up our lifestyle, then I would have to make more so that I didn't want to think
Yeah.
about money. I just
Yeah.
don't want to have to think about or stress about money. And I'm still stressed out
Yeah.
about money. I just don't know if I ever get away from it.
Well, at this point, though, you raise capital. So raising capital, that'll stress you out. Just in and of itself, it'll stress you out. So, yeah. So I figure with your single family portfolio, with your multifamily deals that you do, the syndications, the capital raising, there's got to be something that you can think of that you could have avoided if somebody would have told you about it earlier, a mistake, some type of just slight misstep. So tell us a little bit about maybe something along the way that happened that you're like, if somebody would have just told me so that you can tell us and maybe we don't have to go through that.
I'm a researcher. I'm an 80/20 kind of researcher. I'm going to feel like have about 80% of the information and I recognize that I'm not going to know the other 20% until I go and do it. So it's that other 20% of not knowing, even not knowing what you don't know,
Yeah.
that is what keeps most people from taking action.
Absolutely.
So when I get to that 80%, I'm like, I have to now go do, or the 80% that I learned is useless. So I learned a lot from other people. I'm the youngest, I'm the seventh of 8 children. And so I spent my entire life watching people older than me
Yeah.
and learning from them and their mistakes. I think it's just how little siblings respond to watching other people grow up in front of them.
Yes.
And so I just watch other people and I listen and I research a ton. And so I feel like a lot of the pitfalls I was able to avoid. And that's one of the reasons I was able to get in and get up and running so quickly, was because of just paying attention to people who were ahead of me and doing the same thing, like warning me about their mistakes, their successes and their failures. And I'm not going to take BS, right? I'm not going to listen to people's fairy stories and
Yeah.
sunsets and beaches. In fact, I cornered one syndicator one time. I'd gone to a presentation of his where he was raising capital. He was in town and he's selling the passive lifestyle of the palm trees and the beaches and all that. And I knew he was a syndicator and he was showing us all his family photos. And then after I got into it, I realized this is crap. Like people
Yeah.
now, they'll call me up. Here's the first mistake. They'll call me up and they'll say, I need to want to get in a commercial. And I always say, like, why? What's your motivation behind there? Because it's a difficult business. And if you don't have a strong why or motivation, you are going to become a tourist and wash out,
Yeah.
and you're not going to actually become a long-term resident. And they will say almost 100% of the time, well, I need more passive income so I can spend more time with my family. And I just want to fall on the floor
Yeah.
laughing. This is a career change.
It
This is
is.
not a passive investment. And if you want a new job and you will leave your job and create a new career, create a new business for yourself, by all means, multifamily is great. But if you want more passive income so you can spend more time with your family, you are barking up the wrong tree. Now, if they said, I know this is going to be a 5 to 15-year commitment before
Y-
I get to that point, and I'm willing to put the work in before that, maybe then we can have a conversation. But when they just start out with that and just leave that sitting there,
Yeah.
this is some of the slowest turnaround in real estate that I've ever done. So the
Yeah.
rental houses, the second you put a renter in there, is paying you and is cash flowing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You don't have to share it with any. If you bought that with your own money, you don't have to even pay your investors, right?
Right.
They found me, we get paid last.
Yes.
And we're just
Indeed.
happy when we can make distributions to the investors, right?
Yeah.
Especially right now. But if there's anything left over for us, like that's a bonus.
That's a
The
bonus.
smaller
Yeah.
group you go with, the smaller the property, the smaller the joint venture, the more likely you are to cash flow earlier.
Yeah.
And so for people who want passive income to spend more time with their family, a large commercial multifamily business is not the way to go. Do not let anybody fool you. So I cornered the guy after a couple months at a conference. He was in the back hallway, ready to go out and speak. And I said, tell me about the palm trees and sunshine, or whatever the term was that he used.
Yeah.
Is it really like that? Am I doing this wrong? And he goes, no, I work really hard. I work
Yeah.
overtime. I said, so what's
Yeah.
with the sunsets and all that? He goes, that's the passive investor dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh, well.
So he
I
has to,
know
so he
commercial.
has to BS people, right? In order for them to do whatever that he needs them to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's great. And let me tell you, it's not that it's not a passive income. It's not a passive income for those that are actively working it on a full-time basis. It is a passive income for somebody that just wants to drop $50,000 or $100,000 into
For
a
the investor.
syndication. Yeah. That's the investor,
Not for
right?
the
If they want
sponsor.
to be if they want to be a limited partner, yeah, of course, that's going to be a passive investor, a passive income for that person. But that person usually will also have a full-time job
Yes.
and investing. And at some point along the way, they'll feel like they have enough and they can go and do the palm trees, sunshines, and beaches and whatever. But for us, we're actively working it. And people don't see the hard work that goes behind it because nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Nobody really goes out and talks about it. They want to talk about what I call the rainbows and butterflies, or rainbows and unicorns of the industry. And nobody ever talks about the grit and the grime and the fall on your face in the mud for a while, right? So
Lose money.
oh
I've
gosh.
lost money.
Oh, I have lost a ton of money in real estate. Yeah. And have to wipe the mud off my face, go take a shower and try again.
Yep.
Right.
Well, and that's another thing you'll hear from a lot of people. Like Ken McElroy is what is big for this, but I've met lots of other syndicators who've been doing this for 10, 15 years. They're like, I've
Yeah.
never lost investor capital. I'm like,
Wow.
well, you must have started in 2009 or something, because
Yeah. Yeah. Or a lot of these people will, if they see that they're about to lose it, they'll cut the deal off on an early basis and go ahead and sell it out and get the investors' money back to them. And a lot of them say, I haven't lost investors' money, but there's sometimes that you haven't gotten anything either. The promise that you made that they'll get 8 or 10 or 12% return didn't come to fruition. You might
Yeah.
have got their money back and you might not have lost their money, but I don't see how that right now. I've been in the business since 2019. I have not lost investor money. I don't plan on it.
Yeah.
But you never know what happens. This environment's tough. And we've had to put a lot of personal money into some of our deals, but yeah,
Yeah.
they're still going and they're starting to get traction. So that's good. So, what is one of the biggest challenges that you have in this space specifically that you can tell us about?
Oh,
I don't want to throw anybody under a bus or anything, but
raising capital.
yeah.
And I'll explain why. I mean, I'm a full-time capital raiser, right? So you think that I
Mhm.
must really love it. I must be really good at it. That's the farthest from the truth. I had somebody tell me once, you just put it out on social media and people will be throwing money at you. I was like, do you think I would be hustling this hard on social media if I could raise money like that?
Mm,
That is
yep.
not how it works. That is a total myth.
Yeah.
And the reason why I am a capital raiser full time instead of something else is because one, capital raising is all about marketing. And so, what I said before about how it's so nice to not have to have a personal brand and rely on charisma
Yeah.
and all of that,
Yeah.
capital raising is the opposite. Like, it really does rely on me and my personal branding and that messaging that I'm putting out there. And that's really difficult. It's really difficult to do in the face of criticism. Yes, criticism does bother me just like it bothers anybody else, but
Yeah.
it's not that bad. It doesn't bother me that much. So I can handle it a fair amount of criticism. But the thing that really bothers me, and I have a lot of hangups and I probably need therapy, is I'll put something out there like a deal, or this is why I don't sell coaching, because I'll just put it out there and nobody will buy it.
Yeah.
And you think
Yeah.
that if you just do the program like everybody says, like just post on social every day, respond to them and have a YouTube channel and write a book and do webinars and do the thing and have an email campaign and calling people on the phone, and then still nobody wants to buy it. And so I've
Mhm.
launched, not just in the real estate space, but even before the real estate space, I've launched businesses that have totally flopped.
Yeah.
Totally flopped. Either
Yeah.
I did the thing and I tried to sell it and nothing sold. So then I had all this inventory that I spent
Yeah.
money on what I do with. Things like that. And so I have a lot of, entrepreneurial battle scars from launching. I get emotional. This is a real thing for me. Like, my husband and I talk about it a lot, and you're manifesting a lot of negativity here.
Yeah.
It's going to impact your ability to be able to believe that you can accomplish what you say you want to accomplish. But
Right.
I have a lot of, I don't want to call it PTSD because I think that's overstating,
Yeah.
overstating what it actually is. But yeah, there's a lot of post traumatic stress from putting something out there and then not really getting a lot of support,
Yeah.
or getting a lot of support that's, oh, that's great. Like, I'm going to like and comment on your posts and I'm going to tell people that I know you, but I don't ever actually buy your stuff. And so
Yep.
that's what I feel like there's kind of like this consistent nagging of people aren't going to show up for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that people realize when you start raising capital,
Yeah.
that's, that's pretty
And
much what it is.
you chose that part of multifamily space to go into.
Yes.
Uh,
And here's why, though. Here's why. When you find a deal, okay, you find a deal, you got to underwrite it, you got to negotiate it, you got to get a loan for it, you got to get it closed, you got to manage it with a property
yeah.
manager, you have to do all that stuff as a managing partner. And you have to raise capital. Nobody gets out of raising capital. If you
Yeah.
bring on a guy to sign on your loan and you're not able to, you're struggling to raise capital, you're like, hey, guy, I know I said you only had to sign on the loan, right? But can you please help us raise capital? So
Mhm.
everybody is on board. My first deal, my partner said, you don't have to raise any capital. And he is from old money.
Yeah.
Like, I could name drop, and pretty much
Yeah.
everybody on this listening would
Yeah.
know who I'm talking about. Old money. And he wasn't able to raise it because it was his first deal too. It's not his first deal. It was his first a capital raise, not joint venture, like limited
Yeah.
partner raise. Those are
Yeah.
two totally different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and it was all hands on deck. You need to go raise money. And I'm like, I don't know how to raise it. I'm not going to call my whatever. And so that was a wake up call for me. Everybody has to raise money. And every deal I did, that was a huge, huge part of the stress of leading up to
Yeah.
doing it. And I just want to raise money for other people who are, one, better at the operations than I am, because I don't really like it. And I wouldn't invest money with me if I was the one running the property, right? Like, I learned early on, like, I'm not ops. That's not me. I'd rather raise money for other people who are very talented at what they do and maybe aren't that talented at raising money, right?
That's me.
Yep.
That's me. I'm
I
really talented at the ops and the capital rate at the capital expenses. I'm really good at the renovations
yes.
and all that. I'm not good yet at capital raising. So
There you
I'm
go.
working on that.
Yet.
I'm working on that. Yeah.
If you keep your finger on the details, you're a very detail-oriented person. You're an
Yep.
integrator, an operator, depending on what
All of
personality
that.
test you want to use.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of people I want to partner up with. And so for me, I'm like, I'm gonna have to raise capital anyway. I might as well ditch the rest of this and really narrow and focus on capital raising. Because if you're a part-time capital raiser, you're not a capital raiser. I'm
Right.
sorry, you have to be
Right.
out there all the time. This is not a
Yep.
part-time business.
Yep.
There's a lot of phone calls. That's the other myth, is that you can somehow get an automated drip campaign and all the raise masters. I don't want to say lie, because once you've been doing it long enough, maybe, or during good times,
Yeah.
you've been doing it long enough during good times, maybe it's like that. But I go to a lot of conferences and talk to another capital raiser, big time capital raiser, big name, raised a lot of capital very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I said, how are you doing this? They said, well, I'm a one to many. I definitely like the thought leadership platform. I used to work in info sales, so I know how to launch all these products. And he said, but you're never going to get past the phone calls. Even if they're all
Right.
inbound, you spend a ton of time on the phone,
Yep.
and then you have to follow up with the outbound calls to somebody that might have inbound into your funnel.
Correct.
And I was sitting there at the table, and the other diners were like, hard truths,
It
hard
is.
truths. You want to be
It
a capital
is.
raiser, you're not going to avoid outbound phone calls.
It is. The phone calls have to happen. The emails, it's so easy to swipe and delete, right? And so we live in the microwave world. We don't even live in an oven world anymore, right? We live in that microwave world where everybody's nope, nope, no. Okay, they're just looking for money, or whatever it is. And so the drip campaigns work if they're interested, if they're like
Yes.
truly interested in searching for that, but they don't work if you're just, hey, blast this out there and see if it sticks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
what's
it doesn't matter, even if rich people, you're not going to be able to raise money without
I know
in
plenty.
multiple touch points, multiple conversations,
Yeah,
building relationships.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
there's no family office, institutional money that's going to come save you. And that's another myth
Right.
people get. They think that, well, I'm just going to go for the big check writers. Well, one, they want full timers. Are you going to be full time? Probably not. Two, they want full timers who have been together for a while. They don't even want you to have a nonprofit.
Mhm.
You need to be a full timer and very experienced. They only
Yep.
care about track record. They ask us very few questions about actual deals. And I've only taken institutional money one time, and I ended up selling that project to that investor
Wow.
because I didn't want to work with them.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, that was a nugget right there. That was a nugget right there. So what's next for you in this space? Do you have any deals that you're raising for that you'd like to throw it out there for us and see if there's somebody that might be interested in your deal? Because I have no qualms whatsoever. If you've got a deal that you're raising capital for, we can put it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, the purpose of doing these podcasts, social media, all of that we do, I
Yep.
wish that I could shout this from the mountaintops. It's to raise money. I could put an
Absolutely.
apartment on Facebook Marketplace over the property manager, and it will rent. Nobody cares. Nobody cares
That's
about
right.
me. The only reason we're putting out all this content is to raise money. And I think a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of goodwill with the free content, and we
Mhm.
enjoy doing it, right? There are other things we could do in this business. But for
Right.
those of us who've chosen to do this, it's to raise money. So but don't let that, directly to the listener, like, don't let that keep you from forming a relationship with those capital raisers. If there's a high pressure sales going on behind that capital raise, you don't want to be associating with that
Right.
person. They are not going to push you. They're not going to try to enclose you. Like most salespeople are over that stuff now. Sell or be sold is dead. It's
Yeah.
a relationship based thing where you share what it is that you're looking for. And if it's a good fit and they have what will work for you, they will let you know. And if they don't, they can't help you, right? And they'll refer you out or whatever. So get away
Yep.
from the high pressure salespeople. Form relationships. Capital raisers changed my life because they were willing to spend a lot of time with me on the phone, educating me and hooking me up with resources and
That's good.
just being a resource for me. And some of them became true friends. Some of them I invested in their deals. Most of them I didn't. And some of them have now come and invested in our deals either as limited
Okay.
partners or as like joint venture partners. So those relationships are valuable, and that's what we're offering on these podcasts. Do the inbound phone call, get on the calendar, and then just get into the funnel with a few people that you think you want. And if you don't like unsubscribe, right? Or just say, I'm really not interested.
There you
They will
go.
keep calling until you tell them to stop calling.
Right.
Really. So you just say, I'm just really not interested, and they'll just move on, right? No harm, no foul. Like I have made true friends in this industry, have changed my life, whether or not we've done a deal together. I just went to a funeral recently for a fellow investor that I've known the entire time, 6 years. He died very suddenly,
Mm.
and we never did a deal together. We looked at deals many, many times,
Yeah.
but just had never really found quite the right one. And now we will never do a deal together. But I value that friend, I value that friendship.
Yeah.
They're true friendships.
Yeah.
So don't let the whole salesy part of it turn you off. So there you go.
There you
Of
go.
course,
Awesome.
I'm raising capital. I'm always raising capital. So
Yes, yes. Tell us about it.
yeah, we have a fund for accredited investors where we do both debt and equity. So we do private loans,
Right.
hard money loans on single family flips. And those are very quick, very short term turnarounds. And the people who tend to like those are people who are nearing retirement and want something really safe because debt, let's face it, if you're the lender, is a lot safer than
Yeah.
profit sharing or equity. And so people in their mid 50s pushing on, they're going to be investing in their retirement accounts. So they don't need the depreciation because it's already tax advantage income in there. So the typical person who's going to invest as a private lender that fits that profile. And then occasionally we will find an equity deal. Tends to be younger investors for whatever reason. The debt investors tend to be women and the equity investors tend to be men who are a little bit younger and they really don't want to dig into their retirement for another 10 to maybe 15 years, or they need the depreciation that equity
Yeah.
gives you on your taxes. And so that's kind of the two profiles who tend to gravitate to our groups. And it's just always open. We're always raising, always bringing deals in the pipeline. People are always like, well, how did you guys retire early? How did you guys retire from corporate? And I'm like, well, this is what we invest in to do this, a mixture of debt and equity. And I thought,
Yeah.
well, I want to start a fund that actually puts that out there and
That's great.
opens the curtain on what we're actually investing in. So
Yep.
we invest in pretty much every deal that we have in the fund. If we have funds available, we will invest in it.
That's fantastic. I love that. And I love that the funds that I know quite a few right now that are actually putting funds together, not necessarily going into one deal. We're raising for this one deal or we're raising for this one deal. They're putting a fund together so that they can distribute it throughout deals if it fits, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so for the last few minutes, I like to promote other podcasts and other authors because being a podcast host and an author myself, I like to say, hey, what podcast would you recommend and what book would you recommend?
Okay, good question. I
Okay,
have
other podcasts besides this one, because of course this
yeah,
one, this
yeah.
one's best in my opinion, right?
The Belly Missteps. I have a podcast called Passive Income Adventures that teaches by storytelling. And so it's long, actually. And one of the reasons I do it is so we can do the inspirational storytelling part of it, but still have a good section of 20 minutes where we're doing a lot of nuts and bolts and applicable things. I don't want to inspire people without teaching them because then they walk away inspired and just frustrated. That's like Rich
Right.
Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
Where you right there is like inspire without teaching is just frustrating. So
Oh,
I
that was
Passive
so
Income
good.
Adventures. Yeah.
That was so good. I'm a teacher myself, so yes, drop.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's really important to have both. I really like business podcasts because I'm raising capital and I really want to be very focused on my own business. So, goodness, I would have to go back and look. What podcast have I been listening to recently? A Diary of a CEO is always good,
That one's
but
good.
I don't find a lot of actionable insight in there that I can use in take away in my life.
Right.
I like Alex Hormozy. I feel like there's a lot of bombs that just if somebody gets popular enough and they're gonna start being like, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an internet guru. I'm like, well, he became popular for a reason.
He knows what he's doing.
He's like the king of the one-liner, right? He's
He
able to
is.
just drop the bombs, and it's very, very actionable stuff. You almost have to stop and take notes.
Yes.
Myron Gold, or is it Myron Golden?
Myron Golden, that's another one of my favorites. He's probably one of the top of my list. Him and Alex
Yes.
both. So
Yeah.
we're sisters here. Look.
Yeah. Then I feel like if you want to run a business as a multifamily operator, capital raiser, or anything, there's no getting around the business part of running a business.
That's
Like,
right.
just get good at business, get good at marketing. I think the hard thing about that books or podcasts is there's no contextual help. And that's where a mentor coaching comes in.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like high priced groups or group
Yeah.
coaching. I do group coaching. I don't offer it. I will never do coaching because I'll put it out there and nobody will buy it. And then I'll have more PTSD. But
We're back on that.
yeah, get a coach. Probably always have a coach, like maybe get a year-long program every year, something like that, because that's going to really give you a lot of contextualized advice. And it should be what
Yeah.
you're struggling with right now, somebody who's actually done it. So I have spent a decent amount of money on coaching, but I'm not a collector of programs. I discourage that. But at the same time, and maybe you've noticed this too, have you noticed it's like the same 10 programs that you keep coming back to over and over and over again? I never buy on the first look. I'm extremely conservative, and that's how I am with my investors too. I'm like, I had one investors. This is like a third or fourth phone call. When are you going to ask me to sign up for your portal and invest in your deal? I'm like, oh, I thought we were just making friends.
They were
right?
just
He's like,
friends.
no, I want to see your investments. So you're going to have to probably ask me. But
Yeah.
it's the same 10 that keep coming around. I never invest in the first try, and I never invest for the information. I invest for contextualized advice that's
Yep.
that could be applied to my situation, and great networking. And for me, great networking is limited partners who actually want to invest in my
Yeah,
deals.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. Well, I see your QR code, so that's a really good way for any of our listeners to, or any of our ones watching on YouTube to get in touch with you. What about the ones that are listening on Apple or Spotify or anything like that? How can they get in touch with you?
Passive income adventures you can find on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Just type it in 3 words. And then I'll just add this for the syndicators, highrise.group. If you need a pitch deck design, like that's my background is marketing and information
Awesome.
design. So I do pitch decks and basically just institutional quality. And there's a lot of consultation and investor psychology that we consider. It's not just like hiring a graphic designer off of Upwork or something. There's a collaborative approach to making sure that you're delivering the best quality out there. It's an institutional quality deck, but I'm super affordable. I'm going to cost about the same amount, but I got to get
Good.
with
Good.
somebody
Yes.
who doesn't know what they're doing. So
That's
would love to help you out with your pitch deck design if you're an actual syndicator, or if you just want to get on my calendar, either for pitch decks or investing, just go to investwithemma.com. It goes straight to my calendar and you can book a time with me.
investwithemma.com.
Mhm.
Excellent. Well, Emma, I loved our conversation today. I believe that you added some value in an area that we have not been able to add value previously. So thank you so much. And we'll see you again.
It was great to be on the show. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Multifamily Missteps. Your dedication to our podcast is truly appreciated. Please help us spread the word and make our community even stronger. The valuable lessons that our guests bring each episode will help you and others avoid these missteps along your journey. Hit the subscribe button, take a screenshot of the episode you just listened to, post it on your social media, and tag myself and my friend Jerome Myers. You never know, you might find yourself our next featured guest. I cannot wait to continue this journey with you. Until next week, stay tuned and stay inspired.